Hi students, today we'll be taking up module 5 of our syllabus in theories of growth and development. This module 5 is basically related to the political economic aspect of economic growth. So the topics in this module will be covered under two broad headings. The first one will be institutions, political economy and growth. And the second set of topics will be covered under the broad heading of political institutions and economic growth. So the first part of this unit will be covered in 5 to 6 lectures, and the second part in 4 to 5 lectures. So the first lecture today will be on impact of institutions on long-term development. Okay, so before coming to this topic of impact of institutions on long-term development, let me give a broad background to this issue of political economy and economic growth. In theories of economic growth, which we had discussed earlier, broadly the factors like capital accumulation, technological progress, growth of workforce, improvement in human capital, these factors are treated to explain the differences in economic growth across the nations, and also to explain the long-term pattern of economic growth experience of different countries. Okay, now of course these factors like differences in technological progress and difference in capital accumulation, human capital accumulation, and workforce growth, etc., are very useful to explain the variation in growth, economic growth across the nations, and the way endogenous theories explain why there are innovations, why there is a technological progress happening frequently, and which sustains the long-term growth of rich countries like US and UK. Things are very convincing. But one broad some sort of limitation of these growth theories is the factors which are identified by growth theories as key to explain economic growth, like capital accumulation or technological progress or growth of workforce, etc., are at best the proximate causes. The growth theories doesn't explain why there are differences in capital accumulation, why there are differences in population growth, why there are some countries which are innovating, some other countries which are not innovating. So these factors were not adequately explained. What I tried to say, that what factors causes variation in proximate causes which are identified as growth theories to explain economic growth remained unexplained. So there is a need to identify the fundamental factors which cause the proximate factors. Okay, there are certain fundamental issues which lead to variation in capital accumulation, technological progress, population growth across the nations, and that perhaps actually explain the variation in economic prosperity across the nations. So in this module, we'll try to identify and integrate the fundamental factors which cause variation in proximate causes of proximate causes which explain the economic growth process. So let me be clear, I am talking about proximate causes of economic growth. The proximate causes are basically factors like capital accumulation, technological progress, population growth, saving rate, etc., which were identified by growth theories as the causes of economic growth. So these we are treating now as proximate causes. There are some underlying fundamental causes which lead to variation in these proximate causes, which we are trying to find out. And once we identify these fundamental causes, we'll integrate them with the proximate causes, and which will provide us a comprehensive story to explain the economic prosperity across the nations, the experiences of differences in economic growth across the nations, and it will be a complete story. Now, the literature in economics have already identified certain factors which are critical for economic prosperity. These factors are broadly categorized into different groups. One set of factor which is prominently used is related to the geography. Basically, the ecological, geographical and physical conditions of a particular country has significant impact on its economic prosperity or ability to grow, ability to achieve high economic growth. These things are very simple and straightforward. Say, let us consider the soil quality of a nation. If the land is fertile, good irrigation facilities are there, then obviously that will be conducive for agriculture production. If a particular nation is bestowed with rich natural resources, minerals, iron ore, naturally, the availability of raw material, energy, petroleum products, energy is conducive for industrial progress. Now, the climatic conditions also determine the ability and attitude to work of the people. Then, the disease environment of a particular economy determines the human wealth and the capability to work, and of course provides incentive or disincentive to save and accumulate physical and human capital. The topology of a particular nation determines the transportation cost and has a impact on overall economic prosperity. Moreover, if a country is landlocked vis-a-vis a country which is having facilities of port and waterways which facilitates foreign trade, these are also factors which influence the economic prosperity. So thus, various geographical factors, as we counted now, has definitely an impact, we can say fundamental impact, critical impact on the ability to accumulate capital, saving, and influences the cost. So overall, it influences the economic prosperity. There is a second set of factors which is related to the culture. Basically, the cultural aspect of different nations, which we can express in terms of belief, attitude, preferences of people to choose a particular occupation or to choose a certain type of economic activity, and it also influences people's attitude towards saving. That means current consumption vis-a-vis future consumption, and these factors also influences the cooperation and trust across the people. So the cultural factors which are in terms of cooperation, trust, attitude towards work, has some bearing on the economic prosperity. Thirdly, there is a theoretical issue, and using certain theoretical model, people use the Locke hypothesis to explain the differences in economic prosperity and economic growth across the nations. Basically, people assume, the theorists assume there are multiple equilibria, and different countries start with different decisions about the economic setup, and they are stuck with different level of different economic, out of this multiple equilibria are different equilibrium level, and there is no scope to change. Say for example, if there are two economic equilibrium possible, one is for rich, another is poor. By sheer bad luck, if a country starts with lower economic equilibrium, then it is stuck there and it is not able to get rid of it and moving to the richer economic equilibrium. Of course, these works are more theoretical and its practical applicability is debatable. Now, apart from these three set of factors related to geography, culture and luck, which I discussed, there is a fourth factor which has become very popular, and lots of research work has been done around this. That is related to the institutional factors. Okay, see, if you go back to our growth theories assume several factors to be given. It assumed orderly market conditions. The market structure is assumed as given. The security of property right is assumed to be given. The entry-exit barriers in most of the theories assumed to be given, and the incentives in terms of the government subsidy or taxation assumed to be given. So within these given factors, the growth theories try to explain the differences in economic growth using proximate causes of economic growth. Now, the institutional aspect is very critical for explaining economic behavior of a particular nation. Now, you think of a country like two countries like say North Korea and South Korea. See, North Korea and South Korea have very similar, or you can say identical geography, identical culture. Okay, still they are far apart in terms of economic prosperity. One is a poor economy, another is an advanced economy. So this difference is explained by differences in the institutional framework. These institutional frameworks are in terms of theoretical as well as economic institutions as well as political institutions. How differences in economic institutions shape the economic outcome? The theories are in this area is vast and very extensive. So broadly, they identify two sets of factors which relate the institutional factors and economic prosperity. One is, if the economic and financial institutions in a particular economy is conducive to undertake innovation, is conducive to keep the reward of hard work and provide opportunity to every individual to undertake the occupation or activity of their choice in which they have comparative advantage, then definitely the economy will prosper. So if somebody wants to be an engineer, he has capability to be engineer. If the economy ensures that resources, training and conducive environment is provided to this individual, then he or she can become an engineer and contribute to the nation to the best of his or her ability. Similarly, if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, if the process of acquiring resources for setting up an enterprise is relatively helpful, and if there are no entry barriers, if the the licensing, tax regime, etc. are not very exploitative, okay, then any individual who has capability and interest to become an entrepreneur will become entrepreneur, and then he will excel in his or her vocation. So the country or the nation also benefits from his contribution to the society. Okay, so if the political and economic institutions are supportive by providing necessary facilities and removing all unnecessary artificial hindrances, then that will be conducive for all individuals, all citizens of the country to contribute to the nation to the best of their ability. Okay, this is one. So basically the economic and political institutions should be encouraging, inclusive, supportive. Okay. Secondly, another important aspect of the economic political institutions which are conducive for economic progress as identified by the literature is there should be a central authority. There should be a central authority who should exercise exercise authority for implementation of rules, regulation, laws, policies which are framed. Okay, if all these rules, regulations, etc. are followed, which are conducive, which are followed properly within central agency, okay, ensuring discipline and following rule of law, then the economic prosperity comes automatically. So those countries where the economic and political institutions are not able to provide necessary facilities, support for individuals to take up activities and occupations of their choice and their interest, there perhaps the economic prosperity is not happening. Secondly, where there is no central authority which will ensure discipline, rule of law, and ensuring all these property right and contracts are respected, okay, so then also there will not be economic prosperity if we don't have a central authority which exercises this. So drawing from there is a link between the institutions and the economic prosperity. Now let us quickly try to distinguish what are the economic institutions, what are the political institutions. So basically economic institutions are related to the security of property rights, taxes, contracting institutions, entry barriers, and these are the institutions and policies which directly influence the incentives for undertaking a particular economic activity or for deciding the economic behavior of individuals. Okay, so if these institutions and policies are rewarding, okay, for working hard, for undertaking innovations, and then gaining out of the innovations out of one's efforts, okay, then this will encourage capital accumulation and innovation. Whereas if the institutions, economic institutions and policies are taxing and it provides disincentive for working hard, for undertaking innovations, naturally people will not be encouraged to do so. What are the political institutions? Political institutions are basically the rules and regulations affecting the political decision making. So these are basically various types of political setups like direct democracy or representative democracy or autocracy. So these different institutions, political institutions, lead to different way of collective decision making, and that has different implications for setting up of different types of economic institutions and leading to different types of incentives and allocation of resources, endowments, income, etc. I think I'll become clear as I go on, and I'll give some examples for that. These political institutions which are talking about it is not only different types of political setups like democracy, autocracy, etc. They also include the checks and balances which the political system is having for controlling the behavior of the presidents, the prime ministers, or the dictators. And the political institutions also include the process of resolving differences. See, naturally, when we are collective in a collection of individuals and households, naturally there will be differences with any type of political or economic decisions. There will be a set of individuals which will be gaining, there will be a set of individuals which will be losing, and there will be differences of opinion, there will be differences on these decisions. So when there are differences which are natural to be part of any political and economic system, how to resolve these differences and smoothly take a collective decision. Okay, these are basically some sort of determined by the type of political institutions which a particular economy is having. Now I'll come to the topic of our discussion today, which basically how the institutions, political economy and growth are related. Okay, and we are basically trying to analyze what is the impact of institutions on long-term growth. Now see, as the growth theory suggested, the proximate causes like capital accumulation or improvement in human capital, technological progress determine the economic growth and development across the nations. Now, whether I will undertake capital accumulation, whether I will undertake research and development activities and innovate so that there is technological progress, depends on what sort of incentives the economic institutions are giving to me. Let us take one small example. Let us take two types of market structure which we discussed in microeconomics. One is perfect competition, another is a monopoly setup. In perfect competition, you have many producers, many consumers. So with n number of producers, high number of producers and consumers, the producer doesn't have control on price. It is taking price as given and try to produce maximum possible level of output. Okay. So in this setup, the price of the commodity, price of the good in the market is low, and large amount of goods and services are produced. So large amount of goods and services are consumed. So there is higher consumer welfare. And overall there is also higher social welfare. In a monopoly, there is one producer who is selling to a large number of consumers. Now these to maximize its profit, the monopoly producer is exploiting its market power. The market power is determined in terms of elasticity of demand for its product to changes in prices. So if the product is inelastic, that is a product is a necessary product where irrespective of what price the producer is charging, the demand, the change in demand is not much. So then the producer has an incentive to charge a higher price. When I'm telling higher, it is compared to the perfect competition price. And generally the amount of goods produced by the monopoly producer will be lesser compared to a competitive setup. So here, if you see, the set of consumers benefit if the economic institutions are conducive for a perfectly competitive setup. The producer benefits if the economic institutions are conducive for a monopoly setup. So the consequent allocation in terms of how much to consume, how much to appropriate in terms of profit, endowment, income, etc., which are basically the economic outcomes. I'll say these are economic allocations. Allocations in terms of consumption, income, endowment, etc. These allocations depends on the economic institution. So here economic institution is the set of rules, policies, norms which are deciding whether there will be a perfect competitive setup or there will be a monopoly setup. So let me take these economic institutions, denote these economic institutions as R. Okay, R is a set of economic institutions, and the allocations which we are discussing is say X. Okay, so now X is dependent on R, and if I go back further, actually R is dependent on the political institutions, because the political institutions put in place a particular political structure, political decision making structure, which decides everything, whether it is economic aspect, whether it is a political aspect, whether it is a social aspect. The political structure, the political decision making structure decides what will be the set of economic institutions, right? Now imagine if the monopoly producer has greater political power, then what it will prefer? It will prefer a political setup which will be conducive for a particular set of economic institutions which will encourage monopoly, because with monopoly its economic allocations are favorable to him or her. On the other hand, if consumers have political power, greater political power, their interest lies in having economic institutions which will be helpful or which will be conducive for perfect competition, competitive setup. So they will strive for a political decision which will be conducive for perfect competition, so that their allocation is, to their favor, to their advantage. So this way, if I treat X as allocation, economic allocation, R as economic institutions, say P as political setup or political institutions, then here the individual or the household's utility, okay, welfare, economic welfare is determined by the allocation. So if U, I define utility, I denote utility in terms of U. U is a function of X, X is allocation, X is a function of R, which is the type of economic institutions, R is a function of P, which is a political setup. So look at here, if the allocation should be favorable to the monopolist, so monopolist would like to have R, that is economic institutions which are suitable to monopoly. So it will use all its resources so that and political power, so that the political decision making, the political institutions favor monopoly. On the contrary, if the consumers, they can have greater bargaining power, they will prefer a type of political institutions which will basically induce competitive economic institutions. Okay. Now, see, for this example, if it is an autocratic setup, as you know, in autocratic setup, a handful of people, whether it is a junta of military leaders or a a handful of rich people, which you call oligarchy, they take all decisions, political, economic, social, institutional decisions for the entire entire society or the entire country. Okay, so in an autocracy, a handful of people take a decision. In a democracy, it is basically all citizens have an equal right to directly or indirectly have a say on the political decision. See, if it is a direct democracy, obviously, undertaking a referendum, and then through the referendum a decision is taken. If it is a representative democracy, the citizens through voting elect their representatives, and these representatives take a decision on behalf of the citizens. Now, let us come back again to this perfect competition and monopoly type of setup, type of discussion. So because the number of consumers is very large compared to a monopolist farm, okay, so and when the number is large, then democracy is a favorable political setup. because under democracy it is majority which matters. So if consumers are large in number, they can take political decisions favorable to them, so they will prefer democracy, so that they easily, their voice is heard and they have a greater say in decision making. So if consumers want to have greater say, then there has to, it is basically easy with democracy. On the other hand, if the monopolist firm would like to have greater political power, it will prefer an autocracy, because a monopolist firm may be operating for quite some time, so it may be already accumulated huge amount of wealth. Using its wealth, it can take advantage of that and bribe or influence the handful of people who are taking decision in an autocracy. It is easier to influence a handful of people than influencing a large number of people in democracy. Okay, so a monopolist firm, to ensure its own interest, promote its own interest, it will prefer a autocracy, whereas the consumers will prefer a democracy. So this way, given the political system, you have the type of economic institutions which are put in place, and given the type of economic institutions are in place, there is a particular type of allocation of endowment, income, resources, benefits, etc. So the political institutions has an influence on economic institutions. Economic institutions have an implication, an impact on allocations, and allocations determine the economic welfare. So as I was telling little earlier, if U is my utility, or U is some sort of sum of economic utility in the nation, in an economy. Now this U is a function of X, which is a particular type of economic allocation of resources, endowments, income, benefits, etc. U is a function of X. X is in turn a function of R. The allocation is a function of type of economic institutions. In an example, we gave the example of perfect computation versus monopoly. And R is a function of P. Okay. So ultimately, utility or economic welfare or economic prosperity, etc., are a function of political economy. So depending on the economic welfare, the individual economic behavior will take a shape. So if the particular economic allocation is beneficial for capital accumulation, for undertaking innovation, for labor growth, then there will be higher economic growth, there will be greater economic prosperity. So this way, there is a direct connection between the political institutions or the political economy for the